Hello and welcome to Dissident Canada. My name is Tyler. Today, I am recording on Tuesday? Is that what today is? Jesus, I am lost on what day. But at the end of the week is the termination of Trump's, I guess, tariff deal, so to speak, deadline. And I'd really like to point out everybody's reporting on deals being made, and it's not so much deals. It is frameworks for deals. This is extremely similar to what happened in 2018 when Trump went after just China. And when it was reported that there was deals, it was not a deal. It was a framework for a deal with a deal to come later, which never really materialized. So, you know, um, as the clock ticks down, and there's a lot of interesting things. You've got, again, the same thing. You've got the UK, the EU agreeing to frameworks for deals that really hurt them, or it's not so much hurt them, but do not benefit them. And you can see that, I've mentioned this a few times before, that it looks like I can't exactly give credit specifically to Donald Trump because I'm not sure he entirely understands the system that's at play. But Scott Bessent should know the system fairly well. Um, Again, he gets credited with George Soros in helping break the Bank of England, which is no small task when they did that. But, they did do it. So there's credit there. Again, most of the trade stuff looks to be used as a hammer to reorganize the flow of the Eurodollar system and control apparatus of it to the United States, which has never really controlled the system whatsoever. Yes, they control the flow of U.S. treasuries, which is the collateral back end of it. You call it the base layer. If you want to talk real nerdy about it, you can say that would be like ring zero. But it doesn't have, nobody's used that mechanism of control. Mostly probably out of fear of impacting the U.S. bond market. Because you can't spend like a drunken sailor with an unlimited credit card if the credit card has a limit. Um, so you've got this interesting thing going on there with the trade deals, and everybody's making their own deals, and it seems very auspicious that they're even pretending to make a deal, because again, most of these people are, you know, die-hard globalists, or of that Marxist right or left variety, I should say, who just the antithesis of their existence is Donald Trump, because he is mostly a class betrayer. Like, he's of that, well off class, but does not do everything he can to protect that class. So, to them, he is not kryptonite. I don't want to go that way because that's not what I'm saying. But like you're talking. I'm trying to think of a comparison. Like you've got like Batman to the Joker. You have the one who does all the evil and the one who tries to clean it up as best they can. Like that kind of comparison going on. So the why they're making deals is one of the reasons why they're attempting to make deals, I should say, is because they understand they need to a certain degree. Because again, if you get cut off from the US market in any way, or you get cut off from, say, the flow of US dollars or bonds, you're royally screwed in the market. Like, how do you do uh, international trade if you can't somehow get access to US dollars? Even the Russians have access to US dollars, all right? They have proxies for that, and not just proxies, but they also use stable coins. And with Trump taking control of stable coins to a certain degree, you're taking this framework over of global trade. Like, I don't care what you think about, say BRICS or China's currency, and it's like, oh, it's going to kill the dollar. No, no, no. Please go fucking actually investigate that and see who's using what. Like, even if you're talking, say, BRICS, all right, where they're saying, oh, we're trading in local currencies. One, it's not enough to be statistically significant. And two, you're having a breakdown of that. But three is the most important point I'm going to make. Say you have India and China, all right? And, the Indians say, we're going to buy, I don't know, Chinese copper, all right? Because they need copper. So the company that needs the copper and has been granted permission to buy from China is going to go into the market and buy Chinese yuan or RMB, whichever one they're using. It could be either. So what happens is the Indian company is taking, oh god, now I forget the Indian currency. It's rupees. It's taking rupees and purchasing, RMB or yuan. And what's happening in the back end is the rupee is being swapped for dollars, and then it's buying dollars and then the dollars to purchase the RMB or the yuan, whichever currency they're supposed to trade in. I think it's the renminbi or the RMB is what they're supposed to use, because China's got way too much capital control for their currencies to ever take off. But see, that's what's happening. So you're getting an increased demand for dollars in that situation. Like, that's the entire global back end of finance is dollars. So with Trump taking control of, more or less the flow of dollars, he is controlling the financial system in this slightly convoluted way. But when you also take into account, again, the Stablecoin Act, or whatever it's called, and the use of stablecoins in global financial trade, which is only going to go up from here because it's a much faster and, I don't want to say reliable system, but it's not user friendly at all. But it's getting there, and it's a slightly better system because of the speed at which happens. Like, again, you're talking minutes instead of hours or days or weeks for money to move. Like, yes, you get the recipients being notified that money's there immediately. The SWIFT system is, but that's just a messaging system saying, oh yeah, the back end settlement takes for fucking ever. And if you look at, like, stable coins, specifically like USDT and USDC, they have near infinite capacity. Like, you get, you have the two companies there, that's Tether and, what is it, Paxos, I believe, being now based in the United States, regulated by the United States. They will be like massive buyers of U.S. bonds, like just massively once to back up all their coins, because the reason they're stable coins is they're backed up with assets of varieties. Most of it, because you need it to be highly liquid, is going to be T bills and whatever bonds you so choose. So with control of those two mechanisms, like trade directs the flow of dollars, right? And then you have the up and coming digital global trade dollar, which will be these stable coins, because again, for the most part, they're international. You can't really stop people from using it. Um, it's a market created solution to a market created problem. So it's gonna take time for like rules and like the rollout of those two. It's oh God, I can't remember. It's the Genius Act and one other one that passed like I think 2 weeks ago. Um, for that rollout of like massive buy ups and usage of stablecoins, U.S. dollar stablecoins specifically. All other stablecoins don't fucking matter. Like it's the same with currencies for the most part. Like the only one that matters is the dollar, and the only country that matters in the context of finance really is the United States, because they control the dollar. Like you can break nations, absolutely break them by cutting them off from the dollar. Like, why do you think North Koreans, state actors, specifically continually target crypto? It's because it's a fantastic way to get access to US dollars without having access to US dollars. Um, anyways, these trade negotiations, specifically Canada, it's getting weird because both sides are, saying there's not going to be a deal. And as we've seen, the last year, well, it's not even a year yet, it hasn't had that much of an impact on Canada, because most of the tariffs, like the number that's being cited is somewhere around 78% of trade between Canada and the United States is covered by, what is it, the USMCA, the last trade deal that Donald Trump made in his first term. So, like, is it going to have an effect? Yes, but what you're seeing is a lot of companies that aren't covered by this USMCA stuff are finding domestic buyers for their goods, because those domestic buyers are now, you know, looking at American, and it's like, well, I'm going to have to pay this extra cost that I can't really afford, so buying Canadian. It's happening all over. Um, you are seeing a contraction in most of these spaces. It's not because of the tariffs. Like again, I've said this multiple times. The tariffs are just the grain, the final stack of grain on the camel's back that is breaking it. Like every underlying problem is mostly has to do with the cyclical nature of the euro dollar system. So as for what happens with Canada, I have no idea. Carney needs a deal. Like he absolutely needs a deal. He needs some kind of win. And it and Trump also needs some kind of win. Because if there's a breakdown in, say, trade between the United States and Canada, specifically for the auto sector, with what's brewing in the back end, that just destroys Trump's midterm that's already pretty fucking bad. Um, and more importantly, for America, it's going to have a massive backlash to Trump style policies going forward. Um, not because of what Trump did, but because Trump's basically piling on gas to a fire that is brewing in the background that nobody's paying attention to. Like I'd love to sit here and be like, oh yeah, Carney's gonna do this, this, and this, and then watch it happen. I can't see what his play is. Like Carney is working again very diligently to attempt to make some type of deals happen in Canada. Um, he's like people are now like the last week being like, oh look, the pipeline's dead because the First Nations are gonna have they're saying it and they're gonna kill it, and it's like, eh, maybe, but like you're talking about what maybe 20 to 34 people you have to buy off total to get the First Nations approval. Like it's not that hard to do political shenanigans and get what you want. Like people are thinking as if there's no way you could get one of these First Nations to say, yeah, sure, you can build the pipeline. Like if you understand who most of the vocal chiefs are and how they are deeply fucking hated and disrespected by their supposed people, um, and how they have really no certain control unless you're there's a bunch of shenanigans they can do, but like they're deeply unpopular and they're corrupt as all hell for the most part, so they can make a deal. Like it's not gonna be terrible. Like sure they'll come out and bitch and moan, but like that's to play to who they think they're supposed to be. Like for the most part, none of those like First Nations chiefs and elders are like actually principled. Corrupting them, like they're already corrupt, but like offering corruption to them, and they'll play the part they need to play. Like that's most political positions in Canada. Like look at Doug Ford, all right? His base, the voters of Ontario rejected liberalism again. Well, liberalism in name, let's just put it that way. And he still does liberal things on the behest of Mark Carney, not because he gives a shit. It's because he's a corrupt piece of shit, like every other politician, or at least in my opinion. Like if you, but then again, Doug Ford is also in a very difficult political situation because Carney owns the bond market of Ontario, and with an issuance most likely coming up real soon, Dougie needs to be very careful. But another thing would be like look at Premier Danielle Smith. All right, prior to the election, she was going on and on and on about the no pipelines bill. All right, now not so much. Well, it's because she's making a deal with Carney. Like that's the background. It may take some time, or they may be announcing the deal like within the next couple weeks again to kick the living shit out of Pierre, or is why Carney wants that timing. But like these trade deals are difficult. Like I'm still on the opinion that like what the EU, what the UK is doing is trying to slow roll Trump as much as they can to wait him out, because he's only got like he's almost at 3 years. Like they just have to drag this out for 3 years. All right, they just have to go with the flow for 3 years, and then bam, they can have it back to normal at this rate. It looks like a Newsom probably AOC ticket, in which Newsom wins, and then back to the status quo. But with like Canada, it's different. Trump's strategy with Canada is specifically something else. All right? Trump sees something in Canada. Now, it probably has a lot to do with China, to be fair, okay? And I've said this throughout the entire time. I think the sticking point is China. And I still think that's true. I think there's also other plays being made. Like, if Trump wants to reorganize the world back to a position where it benefits America through, either the Eurodollar system, trade, and strategic defense, because that was a part of the deal with the EU, is that the EU would buy $600 billion worth of American weapons. Deal framework. Let me be correct. Okay? I still think there's an American base that'll be a joint base up in the Arctic. And probably some other stuff as well. But like the possibility is, all right, if we want to get conspiratorial, all right, and say Carney is in on whatever Trump's plan is, because it greatly benefits Carney, so it's corruption, all right? Carney could be resisting, all right, due to, well, let's let Trump break Canada. He picks up Canada. I make a great benefit, and then Trump can do whatever he wants with Canada, and I am a billionaire over in America, and blah 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 blah. Okay? Or Carney could be playing a variation of what's going on with Europe, because most of, say, the trade, again, between America is protected by USMCA, and that renegotiation is supposed to happen next year, so we may just roll that all into one. Or again, there's the Chinese sticking point, or another sticking point. Like, it may be immigration is the sticking point in the negotiations. Canada is not willing to go in a Trumpy position with immigration fast enough. I know there's a lot of people talking that the whole immigration thing is all about, the destruction of whites and blah, 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 and all that shit. And it's like, no, it is purely economic. Purely economic. That is a byproduct they sell to their leftist minions, that anti-whiteism that they sell. It is purely economic in motivation to attempt to bring the economies up. Like, you can see that clearly in the economic data of when did they start going off the rails with immigration. Oh, it's when you started to have participation problems and severe economic strain and weakness. How do you get around that so that, you don't have a collapsed economy, in effect? Well, you bring in immigrants to fill in those roles at a cheaper price. You delay the economic bottom by creating an economic distortion of unimaginable scale. But yeah, these trade wars, the tariffs are extremely personal for Americans themselves, because America has been taken advantage of for decades now. And now that, you've got an economic policy where Americans aren't being taken advantage of, at least, again, these frameworks, whether or not they actually become deals, we don't know yet. It's interesting to see, especially with completely trying to not control but have more influence over the Eurodollar network without going to the nuclear option. I still am in favor of controlling the Eurodollar through bonds because why not? Like, breaking China isn't that hard. Know their bonds. Anybody that does business and holds bonds, goodbye. You need, like, I think this strategy would work because, again, that is the base layer of the Eurodollar network. That is the base layer of the financial system. You can be a real fucking prick about it and win as long as the Eurodollar exists, which it will for quite a long time. People will bend the knee because banks will fail in all likelihood. But you'd have to do it correctly. You'd have to have that secondary sanction provision in there of, like, specifically with China. Like, you go after China, you'd have to say to any Belgian company holding bonds on the behest of China, yours are also nulled. Like, you'd have to do that. And then somehow now you'd have to take control of the stable coins to an even larger degree, which that probably wouldn't backfire, but it would be a thing to do. That would not be easy. But then again, if you tightened and restricted capital control to that extent, you'd have people trying to figure out, legitimately trying to figure out another network system they could use instead of the Eurodollar. Anyways, those are my thoughts on a whole bunch of shit that is tangentially related to the trade wars. Maybe I'll have a video next week to see, oh look, Canada caved, or oh no, Canada caved, what's its next move? Who knows? I'm not thinking that far ahead. I am thinking about 10 other things, such as the dollar index being slightly moving up. Like, when I say slightly, like, we're talking a peak of like 2 points in the last couple days, which is like, it dove down to 97 and then it hit upwards of 99 for a few minutes there, maybe even an hour. So it's interesting that a little bit of de-dollarization is happening, because that's what happens when the dollar index goes up. Dollar debt is being destroyed, and demand is happening at the same time. It's a complicated seesaw, or complicated slight math equation that nobody understands. Well, not nobody, but very few people understand it to a high degree. And I'm not saying I do. It's just, it is a complicated system of why the dollar increases versus the dollar index basket of currencies. It's not so simple as, oh, look, more people want the dollar is king again, versus, oh no, it's down to 97, a still remarkably high low, the dollar is dying. Like, it's, go learn about the dollar milkshake and then let's go have that conversation. Anyways, end of the video for today. It's a little bit longer because, trade and currency and stuff is a complicated system that needs to be somewhat explained well. Like, I could probably, if I drilled into one of the topics I talked about today, you could probably make a 3-hour video. And by you, I mean me. Anyways, see you tomorrow with something I have no idea. Until then, have a good day.